He was rich, powerful, and untouchable, at least, that's what everyone believed. The hospital lights flickered as nurses rushed around, doing everything they could to save the billionaire's son. Machines beeped, alarms blared, and yet, his condition kept getting worse. Every doctor had the same answer: "We're doing our best." But their best was slowly killing him. Then came her, a waitress, exhausted from a double shift, unnoticed by most, invisible to many. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to see what she saw. But in a moment that would change everything, she noticed what the experts missed, something so small, so obvious, it should have been caught hours ago. Within minutes, her discovery would expose more than a medical mistake. It would uncover prejudice hidden behind professional smiles, a truth that no one in that hospital wanted to face. Because sometimes, what's overlooked isn't just a symptom, it's a person. Would anyone believe her? And before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching this from? It was supposed to be just another shift. For Alicia Moore, the breakfast rush at Hillcrest Diner was the same as always: the smell of burnt coffee, the clatter of dishes, and the endless stream of orders shouted over the hum of tired conversations. She'd been working there for almost 5 years, ever since dropping out of nursing school to help her mother pay rent. To most customers, she was invisible, just another waitress refilling cups and forcing polite smiles. But Alicia noticed things. Tiny details others ignored: a trembling hand, a shallow breath, the kind of exhaustion that wasn't just about lack of sleep. Maybe it was her unfinished training, or maybe it was empathy sharpened by years of being overlooked herself. Either way, she saw people, even when the world didn't. Outside those diner windows, another world existed, the one with luxury cars, private hospitals, and people who'd never have to count tips to survive. Alicia didn't belong there, and she knew it. But life has a way of colliding worlds when you least expect it. That morning, a man in an expensive suit came in, frantic, distracted. He barely looked at the menu, his phone glued to his ear. The only words Alicia caught were "critical condition, the doctors still don't know." She thought nothing of it, just another rich man with rich problems. But when he rushed out minutes later, leaving a trail of confusion behind, something about his trembling hands stuck with her. By noon, news spread through the small town: the billionaire's only son had collapsed at a charity event. Every major hospital was talking about it. The cause? Unknown. The condition? Worsening. Alicia brushed it off and went back to work, though something deep inside her felt unsettled. She didn't know that within hours, she'd walk into that very hospital, not as a nurse, not as a visitor, but as the only person who'd notice what no one else did. Because fate doesn't always whisper, sometimes it shouts. And for Alicia, that shout was waiting just beyond the hospital doors. The smell of antiseptic and fear filled the emergency ward. Alicia stood frozen near the sliding doors, her apron still tied around her waist, her name tag catching the fluorescent light. She shouldn't have been there, she knew that, but when she'd seen the news and recognized the man from the diner begging for help, something inside her told her to go. The billionaire's son, Ethan Vance, was in critical condition. The doctors spoke in low tones, their faces tight with confusion. Machines hummed. Monitors blinked. They had run every test, tried every scan, and still, nothing. His pulse kept dipping. His color was fading. Alicia lingered quietly in the corner, unnoticed by most, or so she thought. She didn't belong in that space of polished shoes and hushed authority. Her diner uniform might as well have been a warning sign, outsider. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, not just with the boy, but with the way they were looking at him. She watched as a young black nurse tried to suggest something, a possible allergic reaction. The attending physician barely looked up. "It's not that," he said flatly, dismissing her before she finished. "We've already handled it." He turned to the others, continuing as if she hadn't spoken. The nurse's shoulders sank. Alicia felt her chest tighten. She knew that tone. She'd heard it all her life, the kind that said you don't belong here. She glanced toward Ethan's bed. His lips were pale, his breathing shallow. Then she saw it, a faint rash creeping up his neck, subtle but spreading fast. Her half-finished medical training kicked in. Allergic reaction, anaphylaxis. But the doctors were focused on something else entirely, a rare neurological disorder, a theory that fit their narrative better than the truth staring them in the face. Alicia hesitated, heart pounding. She wanted to speak, but what would she even say? She wasn't a doctor. She wasn't even supposed to be in the room. When she finally stepped forward, her voice was trembling but steady. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I think." Before she could finish, a nurse intercepted her. You can't be in here." The head doctor glanced over briefly. "Security, please escort her out." The humiliation burnt deep. They didn't even let her explain. Her words, her presence, her uniform, all dismissed in seconds. As two guards led her toward the exit, Alicia's mind screamed. "He's dying, and they don't even see it." She turned back one last time, shouting through the chaos, "Check his for. Please." The words echoed for a moment, swallowed by the noise. Outside the ward, Alicia stood shaking, her hands gripping the cold metal railing. She'd done everything she could, hadn't she? But the thought wouldn't let go. What if I'm right? What if they're wrong? Minutes later, she heard alarms from inside, the same alarms she'd heard before. Only this time, they didn't stop. Her instincts took over. She pushed past the security desk, racing back into the ward. The staff tried to stop her, but she slipped through in the chaos. Ethan's monitors were flatlining. The doctors were panicking. Alicia's eyes darted to the bag, the same one she'd suspected. She saw the small label, peanut oil derivative. Her heart dropped. Ethan's medical bracelet, lying on the tray beside him, clearly listed a peanut allergy. They had missed it. All of them. She shouted, pointing. "He's allergic. It's the four." For a split second, no one moved. Then chaos erupted, the doctors scrambled to replace the line, and nurses rushed with adrenaline. Within moments, Ethan's heart monitor beeped again, weak but alive. The room fell silent except for the rhythmic pulse of recovery. Alicia stood there, trembling, surrounded by stunned faces. Some looked grateful, others ashamed. But one thing was certain, she had saved him. If stories like this hit you hard, take a second to subscribe. There's more truth the world needs to hear. And yet, as she turned to leave, she heard the whispers start. How did she even know that? She's not even supposed to be here. The truth was too inconvenient, not just that a waitress had spotted what doctors missed, but that they hadn't listened because of who she was. Outside, Alicia leaned against the cool night air, tears stinging her eyes. She had saved a life, yet somehow still felt invisible. But deep down, she knew, this wasn't over. Because the story wasn't just about a boy who almost died. It was about a system that almost let him. And soon, the world would know too. The next morning, Alicia's name was everywhere, though not in the way she imagined. The hospital released a statement praising their team's swift action in saving Ethan Vance's life. Not a single mention of her. Not a single word about the waitress who'd noticed the fatal error. To the public, it was just another heroic success story from a world-class hospital. But inside those walls, whispers spread fast. Some nurses spoke her name in awe. Others are in warning. The head physician called her a liability, claiming she interfered with medical procedures. Within hours, Alicia was summoned to a small, windowless office. 3 men in suits were waiting, administrators, their faces cold and professional. One of them spoke softly, like someone reciting a script. "You were not authorized to be in that room, Miss Moore. What you did was reckless. You could have compromised a critical case." Alicia stared at them in disbelief. Reckless? She had saved a life. But the more she tried to explain, the more they shut her down. Her voice cracked as she spoke, the words tumbling out. "If I hadn't said anything, he would have died." The man across from her sighed, glancing at his clipboard. "There's no evidence to support that. The boy survived because of the medical team. You're lucky we're not pressing charges." Her heart pounded. Lucky? They escorted her out through the back entrance, no thanks, No acknowledgement, just quiet dismissal. Outside, flashes from cameras and reporters waiting near the main door caught her eye. The hospital wanted the story, just not her part in it. Later that evening, a nurse from the ward found her sitting alone by the bus stop. She handed Alicia a folded piece of paper, a printout of the patient report. Someone had quietly added a note at the bottom. Initial reaction caused by 4 compound, peanut derivative confirmed. Intervention initiated following external observation. External observation. That was her. But they couldn't even write her name. As the bus approached, Alicia stared at the words until they blurred. She felt a strange mix of rage and exhaustion. The injustice wasn't just about being ignored, it was about being erased. That night, she posted her story online. No dramatics, no accusations, just the truth. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. Thousands of comments poured in. Some praised her courage. Others doubted her, calling her a liar seeking attention. And then came the twist she didn't expect. The billionaire himself reached out. Ethan's father wanted to meet. The same man who'd ignored her at the diner now wanted to talk. When they finally met in the hospital's private garden, his face was pale, eyes sunken, humbled. He told her he'd seen the medical report, that he knew the truth. "I owe you my son's life," he said. "And they owe you an apology." But Alicia didn't want gratitude. She wanted accountability. Because for every Ethan, there were countless others, ignored, unheard, unseen, because of the color of their skin, their job, or where they came from. As the wind rustled through the courtyard, she realized this was no longer just her story. It was a mirror, one the world couldn't look away from forever. And soon, that mirror was about to crack wide open. The world didn't change overnight. After the story went viral, news anchors debated it, hashtags trended, and people argued in comment sections about whether Alicia Moore was a hero or a fraud. The hospital released a carefully worded apology, though it never named her directly. "We take all patient safety concerns seriously," they said, the same line they'd used for years to cover quiet mistakes and invisible people. But this time, someone refused to be invisible. Alicia's face, once just another in the crowd, appeared on headlines, podcasts, and talk shows. She didn't speak with anger, she spoke with clarity. She told the world what it felt like to be silenced not because of what you did, but because of who you were. How it felt to have your voice dismissed in a room full of people who looked right through you. And people listened. Some for the first time. Ethan's father, true to his word, used his influence to demand an independent investigation. The findings were brutal, multiple warnings ignored, racial bias in communication patterns, and an environment where hierarchy mattered more than truth. Several senior staff were suspended. The hospital pledged reform. But Alicia knew policies couldn't fix what was broken inside people. Not overnight. She returned to work at the diner, the same chipped counters, the same hum of conversations. Customers recognized her now. Some thanked her. Others whispered. Fame, she realized, didn't erase judgment, it only made it louder. Yet, there was peace in knowing she'd done the right thing, even when the world told her to stay silent. One afternoon, a young black girl came into the diner with her mother. She stared at Alicia shyly before saying, "My teacher showed us your story. I want to be like you when I grow up." Alicia smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. That moment was worth more than any headline. Because this story was never just about one mistake in a hospital. It was about every voice that goes unheard in rooms where power decides who gets to be right. It was about every worker overlooked, every patient ignored, and every truth buried under pride and prejudice. Racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it hides behind lab coats, degrees, and polite smiles. It lives in assumptions, in who we choose to listen to and who we don't. Alicia didn't change the world that day. But she cracked it open, just enough for the light to get in. And maybe that's how change really begins, not with grand speeches or viral posts, but with one person refusing to look away, refusing to stay quiet when it would have been easier to. So the next time someone speaks up, someone who doesn't fit the part, someone you think doesn't belong, will you listen? Or will we let another voice fade into silence while the world keeps spinning as if nothing's wrong? Because silence has a cost. And sometimes, it costs a life.